everyone. And I must thank all of you for having braved today's weather. However, I am very grateful that all of you could make it. And as Anirban has mentioned, this is going to be our monthly program, and which was earlier called the Pattern Talk Shop. And now this is a pattern initiative itself, with the Budia initiative, I would say. This Caring Minds International is supporting this, our talk program, lecture program. So anyway, without further ado, I would request, I will introduce Mr. Ravi Kumar. He is a global educator and corporate mentor. He holds an MBA in International Business from the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, with an international exchange at the London Business School. In learning and development, he conducts executive coaching and corporate training for multinational clients with a focus on soft skills, strategic planning, and leadership. He is also a private pilot and the founder of Water Club of India. Over to Ravi Kumar. I think he will hold us spellbound, and I have interacted with him. His knowledge is certainly vast. Over to you, Ravi.
Thank you, sir. I'm paraphrasing Albert Einstein here. You have to accept your limits. Accept your limitations, then you can go beyond them. Tell me, is that a gateway or is that a barrier?
I guess it's a gateway.
Which one? Accepting or not accepting?
Accepting.
Accepting. Thank you. Because the other side is a barrier. Now, this is Einstein. It might be a good idea to listen to him. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. So I'd like to welcome you all up there. Einstein? So climb up to head off to next. One of the giants of management was Peter Drucker, first management leader. And many big business schools in America tried to attract him to them. He refused to leave Claremont College. He says, I can do good work anywhere. He wrote the book, Management by Objectives. And I tell you, someone else has acknowledged, many years after Peter Drucker wrote MBO, someone else has acknowledged that. Dr. Stephen Covey, he wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the chapters is begin with the end in mind. Objective, what are you hoping to achieve? So that's kind of confirmed. What I have is, so we hope to be effective a lot over here. So let's begin with the end in mind. Let's set some objectives right here in the beginning. Objectives. Just
Objectives on what?
in the theme barriers and gateways to communication and business. Communication. Why are we communicating? The purpose of communicating is to build businesses. In this context with the management association, we may communicate for other purposes. So may I suggest that a very good objective today would be learning. One word. If you look up the word in dictionary, you will find learning is a noun. Objectives are always very short and they don't have verbs in them. Strategy is what you use to achieve objectives. Strategies have verbs. So what is the strategy we are going to use to learn today? To learn verb. You can turn this on its head because most people are not aware of this approach. So if you begin with a strategy, always ask yourself, what purpose will this serve? That's also okay. Once you know what the purpose is, then you can actually head there. If you don't know what the purpose is, then you don't know where you're headed. Purpose is a synonym for objective. So there can be other words, goal, aim, one more, target. How about in Hindi? 2 words in Hindi. Purpose is the English word, yes. Two words in Hindi. Lakshya and
Gantavya.
Uddeshya. And what about Urdu? Maqsad. Maqsad. So all you guys have understood now what? There's no excuse. I didn't understand purpose. If you haven't understood purpose, yes, please ask me. First you set the objective, then you come up with strategy. If you have strategy in your head, try to think, what is the purpose, what is the objective of this strategy? So I have suggested that our objective today will be learning. That will be the purpose. What is the strategy we are going to use? Staying on the subject of objectives, have any of you heard of Nash equilibrium? Okay, so there was this professor at Princeton called John Nash, and when he wrote his PhD thesis, his thesis advisor called him and said, "What are you doing? You are writing something against 150 years of economic principles created by Adam Smith." Remember the invisible hand, competition, markets, this guy wrote the exact opposite. Most of what we do in our lives requires collaboration and cooperation. He proved it. It took the Nobel Prize Committee 45 years to recognize what John Nash had done. It's called Nash equilibrium. Most of what we do in our lives requires collaboration and cooperation. You don't believe me? Next time you're at a signal and you're not moving, you can take a look. Someone will be crossing the road even though the light says don't cross. And you're driving down the highway and people are cutting across and no, the fastest way down the highway has been studied by MIT. You heard of MIT. Shoulders of giants is to don't change lane. You may be able to be the only person who successfully gets to be a little faster and not much. That's called egotism. You're the only person who matters. I'm sorry, everybody matters. That's egoism. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. Stay in lane. You see this on aeroplanes. They tell you, put your oxygen mask on first, then help someone else. You try to help someone and you pass out in the process. What use are you? See, egoism. Egoism. This is very important. Not egotism, where I'm the only person who's valuable. No, everybody's valuable. So these concepts became very clear when Nash did the math. He was a mathematician. But they realized, that's why they call it equilibrium. Equilibrium is a word they use in economic game theory. But it's the most amazing thing. It is really the most amazing thing. Most of what we do in our lives requires us to collaborate and cooperate. There is a place to compete, and that is markets. When there's a market, please don't collaborate and cooperate, because then you'll be forming a cartel. And that's against the law everywhere in the world. At least everywhere in the world that they believe in equity, they believe in business ethics, they believe that the market will actually deliver. Wherever that's cartel. See, that's... So tell me, in business, is collaboration and cooperation a barrier or a gateway? In business.
Yes.
In
I don't agree
markets.
with you,
It's a
sir.
value.
That
This
it will
is the
be a
value.
cartel.
This is the value.
Yes.
It's not necessary that collaboration will create a cartel. It's up to me.
Absolutely.
If I am joining with crooks,
Yes.
then it is a cartel.
Correct.
But if I
Correct.
can join with 5 gentlemen, then it's not a cartel.
No, you can join and have a drink, no problem. You all can.
No, even business decisions, even working in the market.
I don't know. It's called collusion. We have a word for it.
I'll give you an example.
No, we have a word for it. It's called collusion.
No,
So
not
this is
necessarily.
collusion.
I'll
Okay.
tell you.
We'll come to your thing in a little bit. Until I'll just do the next part, and then I think you'll be a little more inclined to take this in the direction we are trying to take it.
Are you heading to the headline of today's theme?
Yes, barriers and gateways.
You are heading, and I would like to request you, at the context of today's change of GPT,
Huh.
then how do we proceed further?
Change
on the
of
effect
GPT. What is change
on
of
the
GPT?
introduction of GPT.
Oh, ChatGPT. Certainly. We will.
And this thing, what is
Yes,
there.
yes.
If you would please discuss that.
Can we do it at the end?
Sure. Yeah.
Once I set a foundation upon which we can build a building taller than 42 Charangi,
ठीक है.
we will build it. See, otherwise, what's the strategy? There has to be some purpose, right? So, just a few quick examples of how collaboration and cooperation could work in business. It could be a gateway. When you have committees and people come together to set up rules on how to run that kind of business, that's allowed. Because the government has said, do the committee. I know someone in the USA, a friend of mine from Kolkata, who headed a committee there for autonomous air taxis. And it was driving him nuts because all the companies who were in the field of air taxis, they were making no progress in the committee. So he was chatting with me. Oh, I said, that's obvious. He said, how? You've never attended a meeting? I said, no, but I know these things. I said, they're competing with each other. They have to stop competing when they're in committee. Because this is where we establish the ground rules of the business for autonomous air taxis. You call an air taxi, it lands on your roof, you get in it, it will take you to your destination roof or wherever. He told me next meeting, he pointed out to everyone, please stop competing with each other. Bas, ho gaya theek. So that's solved. When can companies get together and collaborate and cooperate? When it is signed off by the highest authority. Then they can do it. So I have a couple more requests to make. Since we know collaboration and cooperation is better for learning, I'll give you one more example before I forget. You've heard of George Bernard Shaw?
Sure.
Right? Giant of literature. He got his Nobel about the same time that Rabindranath Tagore got his Nobel. They were, I won't say colleagues, but they were contemporaries. They were at the same time. George Bernard Shaw started the London School of Economics. Rabindranath Tagore started Shantiniketan. Giants. Come on, climb on up with me. This is what George Bernard Shaw said. He said, if I have an apple and you have an apple, I give you my apple, you give me your apple. How many apples do you have?
One.
I also got one. But if I have an idea and you have an idea, you give me your idea, I give you my idea, how many ideas do you have now?
Two.
And how many do I have? Two. How about that? See, learning. That's why he was George Bernard Shaw. Because he wrote like this. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. My request to you all is if we are going to learn here, we have to collaborate and cooperate. Why? George Bernard Shaw said so. In my experience of teaching both in corporates and at business schools since 1989. Not bad, huh? First guideline, please don't compete with each other. Now, this is in the article you will be given by Vrinda at the end. You read this article, Harvard Business Review. Harvard has allowed this article to be widespread circulated because it's too important. It's too important. In there you'll see the way they run business schools usually is they get students to compete against each other. No. That's teaching them the wrong thing. When you're going to learn, you should not compete. You should collaborate, cooperate. Otherwise that apple thing happens. Well, you want the idea thing to happen. Second thing. Second request. Heartfelt. Don't compete with each other. Please don't compete with me.
You are too tall for competition. You are a giant
Well,
and you are pygmies, you know.
well-
They are illiterates in the of Galileo.
Very, very kind of you to share that. But this is the tendency. Everyone wants to show how much they know. Very good. Right? Please show how much you know. But in the spirit of sharing. Not in the spirit that I know more than you. No. See, there's an extent to which things can be known. There's a limit to which things can be known. So anything that you say or want or would like to happen, it's governed by a probability distribution. Am I going to get home tonight? 99.99% I'll get home dry. Thanks to GM. Okay? Yeah. I came here today dry, 100%. Thanks to GM. But there's that small probability when I was coming here that the car may stop and I have to get out and walk here. I live very close by. When there's no traffic, the car will take 1 minute. I'm so close by. Walking is 6 minutes. Angufar Street, back gate of Saturday Club, Loudon Street, Police Thana on the corner, next road, Rawdon Street, opposite Pukija. How far away is that? It's still governed by a probability.
Yeah.
And we must have that modesty. Must have that modesty. Okay. So now that we have got some guidelines for learning from each other, right? Let me come to. So these are all ideas from the past. Management by objectives. George Bernard Shaw, Albert Einstein, the gentleman who said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Those are not my words. It's some giant. I have learned it from some giant. In strategic management, we have a concept called Hofstadter's cultural dimensions. There are 6 cultural dimensions. You can see it on Meta, on your WhatsApp, Meta with Llama 3.2, it will tell you all. In 1 minute, it will give you everything you need to know. So Hofstadter said you have to look at these before you decide how to go about doing business in an economy. In business communication books, in all the libraries, there'll be maybe half a page or 1 page about cultural communication. Really, it deserves a whole book, not just half a page. There are 2 types of cultures, high context and low context. Low context cultures are work comes first. Have you heard this before? Have you heard anything I've said before? Or have I kept it nice and fresh all? Thank you. Thank you. There's no response. Some people are enjoying the snacks. Good. I like that also.
You mean by work is worship? Did Caroline say
I haven't said work is worship yet. I haven't said, but I like your interpretation. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, low context means work comes first. High context means relationship comes first. So, what is India? High context or low context? Now, don't say anything. Some people are very shy, afraid of failure. Don't worry. Those of you who think India is low context, work comes first, raise your hand. Alright. Those of you who think India is high context, relationship comes first, raise your hand. So, correct. It is high context. Relationship comes first. This is a meta concept. This is a concept above the 6 concepts of Hofstadter's strategic cultural elements. When you put all that together, nothing is going to happen if you don't have a relationship. We were talking a little earlier this evening, and I was delighted. People who I was speaking to, everything they were saying is they were pulling off things in India because they had a relationship. So relationship comes first, work follows. Very important in India. Very important. On a small aside here, the problem is people spend so much time developing relationships, they're not devoting enough time to develop skills. And this has come out in the Human Development Index of the United Nations. The United Nations is not going to publish figures which are not true, because they are genuinely interested for countries to do better. Country does better, the world does better. Their markets do better, everyone does better. So they're looking for it. So before COVID, I had seen some figures on the Human Development Index. India was 108 on the list of 160 countries which had participated. And then after COVID, I think in 2023, India was 134 on the list. Still, the key thing moving that is what the United Nations said in 2019. They said, very nicely, they say about 20% of people in India have a competence, they have a skill. What is the flip side of that?
20% don't have the skill.
Interestingly, I have a cutout from a newspaper which published research done by the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in India, New Delhi, headquarters. What they came up with is that 80% of people who have got the doctor certificates and everything in India are not really doctors. They don't have the competence. About 20%. This is an independent research. But around the same time it came out, so that really struck me. So now you know why it's so difficult to find a plumber. It's very difficult to find an electrician. Yeah, you must have all had this experience. In my building, it took us more than 35 years to find a plumber who knows what he's doing. Now that we found him, we're not letting him go. Whatever he charges, he's such a nice guy, he can charge anything he wants. See, Oscar Wilde. People know the price of everything and the value of nothing. You find a competent person, hang on to him or her for dear life. Because they've actually got the skills. But the problem is they are not recognized. See, even that is a skill, the ability to recognize, and that comes about when we talk about learning. So the next thing we're going to do is to talk about learning. Remember I said your objective is learning? So what is learning? Let me just make sure the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, what did he say? Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. I used this quote when chatting with Ben Feringa. He really liked it. Nobel laureate in chemistry, 2016. I was chatting with him. He really liked it. The audience also really liked it. Father of our nation. Learn as though you will live forever. The question I have for you, other than GM Sir and maybe Orindo, none of you have a relationship with me. So how are you going to do the work that's required? Learning. If you don't have a relationship with me. This is very deep. It goes into the level of belief. People are not aware. It goes into the unconscious of the person. So a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis is based upon that relationship first. Most of you realized that in India, relationship is first. You have a relationship, you can do things. You don't have a relationship, well, it may be difficult to get things done. Or to do it yourself, you may be competent. So I want you to question yourself. You have no relationship with me. How are you going to work with me?
Of course, you have to build the bridge. Doesn't mean there's no bridge. You have somebody or you or maybe somebody or some bridge has to be built. Only then we can cross over to the other side and learn from it.
Yeah. So about this bridge building thing, I'm a civil engineer, so I like it from the civil engineering perspective. But from the management perspective, we are really not so sure. Because, listen to this, listen carefully. Every developed nation in the world is low context. Work comes first. We are not a developed nation. Now, do I need to answer the question why? Given what I have told you, we are developing. But with the huge population we have, it's a market. Okay, they may not be that enabled, but people do have some funds. They're alive, managing. So, what I need you to do is to remind yourselves what countries which are high context, that means relationship comes first, They have separated work from relating. See, Japan is very high context and yet it's very successful economically. South Korea, very high context, yet it is successful economically. Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, how did all that happen? Because they separated it. So what I want you to do is consciously separate the need to have a relationship with me from the need to work with me. Okay? It's just a mental switch. Now we can work together. My relationship is fortunately with the Calcutta Management Association, with GM. That's all. Now we have to work. So what are we going to do to start learning? In the context of today's theme, may I suggest that we begin with the need to listen. So you won't listen to me if you don't have a relationship with me. I'm saying you forget that. Listen to me whether you have a relationship with me or not. Listen to me. What does listening mean? What does listening mean? You'll get the article, which has that title. You'll get the article. Listening means you have to understand and appreciate what the person is saying. The problem is almost everyone I meet doesn't do that. The tendency is to evaluate. The tendency is to judge. The tendency is to interpret. And we especially see that with managers, because that's the job of being a manager. You judge what's going on. Is it a marketing problem? Is it a finance problem? Is it a strategy problem? Is it something to do with account? So the advice is, before you judge, first understand and appreciate so that you can judge more correctly. So that's as a manager. There are much bigger global reasons for listening. They have done this research twice. They did it, 50, 60 years ago, and then they did it again about 20, 25 years ago. What was the research? What is the cause of all the conflict around the world? We thought after World War II it would go away, but it didn't. They had the problem in South Korea, North Korea, and this is continuing even till today. What they discovered then and what they discovered now, using all the new tools, techniques, better computer programs to evaluate the data, answer was the same. 95% of conflict in the world is because somebody is not listening. %, of air crashes. By the way, do you know what is the safest form of transportation in the world?
Planes.
Airlines, yes. We're talking about passenger. The safest is aeroplanes. By far, it is more dangerous to cross the street outside my house than it is to go on an aeroplane. Okay, 80% of air crashes, I got hold of this research, is because someone wasn't listening. Either the control tower didn't give the right instructions because they were not listening, or the pilot was not listening.
Or they missed a point on the checklist.
Yes, that's the other 20%.
I don't understand what will miss the point on the checklist.
That'll be the other 20%. They may have missed something, so it crashed.
Airlines work with checklists. So
No, in the cockpit, it's all checklist, and they have the microphone on all the time. So in case something happens, it's there in the black box. They listen to what you were saying. So this is the way they do it in airlines. Whoever's the pilot in command, they call out the checklist, and the other person confirms it's done, all verbally. You don't have to look at it, but you have to do it before you go to the next phase, say descent, or making the approach, or begin your taxi for takeoff. All before that, they're all checklists, which is what has made it so safe. So yes, it could be you miss something. That's the 20%. 80% of accidents is because someone didn't listen. Very sad, unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. So, I mean, you're seeing the conflicts in the world today. There are two big wars going on. Let's not take any names. Definitely, someone is not listening. Now, which side, who's not listening? Let's not get into that. But someone isn't listening. See, this is the meta concept. Listening means you understand, you appreciate, you don't evaluate. Because evaluation again becomes that egotism thing. Evaluation is my point of view. But you're not the only point of view. I've got 30 other points of view in the room. I've got 30,000 points of view in my market. I'll do a market research. Just because you're the boss, that doesn't make you right. See, this little bit of modesty is required. A little bit of modesty. So the tendency to evaluate very high, because as managers we need to evaluate. You want to evaluate better. First, suspend judgment. You'll become better at evaluating because you'll understand. You'll appreciate what you are evaluating. There's another reason why you should listen. Because people who are assertive, they listen. People who are aggressive, don't listen. So very clear with the conflicts going on in the world today, it's very clear from the conflict you can make out that somebody is not listening. But if you are assertive, then the chance of conflict is less. Why do we want to avoid conflict? What is the first victim of conflict? What is the first thing that is victimized by conflict?
Common people.
We are on the receiving end, yes.
Relationship get crossed.
I can't hear you.
Relationship get
Peace gets a hit. Peace gets a big blow. And since peace gets a big blow, the economy is automatically affected. The economy
Yeah.
also is affected.
Yeah. Again, research shows that the first victim of conflict is the truth.
the purpose.
Nobody knows what's happening there in Europe or in the Middle East. Nobody, because the truth is disappeared. Conflict has made sure it's hidden. You listen to both sides have completely different stories. There goes the truth. What are the chances of resolving the conflict? If you don't know what the truth is, then you can point out to someone, take responsibility. It's a really huge challenge. Much better to be assertive. So the question is, how can you be assertive? Now by asking the question, and once again I've used the word, I've given you a big hint as to the way to be assertive. What's the way to be assertive? Listening, yes. But there's something you can do besides listening to be assertive.
Get the facts right. Get the facts.
Okay.
Because in the way the India-China
Okay.
conflict was solved, the Prime Minister Modi was, he listened, he got the facts right, he raised the thing and made the Chinese, his assertiveness,
Okay.
Modi's assertiveness,
Okay.
brought about peace in the India-China
Could be.
conflict last
Could be.
going on for last 5 years.
Could be. Quite possible. How do you know that?
Because I was watching the news and all this.
So, see, I'm not here to compete with you. I'm just here to point out that there will always be someone who has a point of view which makes you take a step back and say, I never asked that question. So how would you be assertive? This is the third time I've given you a hint.
Discuss to the point. Restrict your discussion.
Okay, these are all standard ways.
Transparent communication.
Yes.
ODSs.
How will you do for time? Okay.
ODSs.
I think asking questions and
Okay.
understanding.
Loudly.
Asking questions and
There you go.
Asking questions.
The boss of Google, he said, we do not run this company on answers. We run the company on questions. This is more than 20 years ago. Look at it. They're in trouble all over the world because they're making too much money. I would prefer, please remember this mantra of management, I would prefer questions which cannot be answered rather than answers which cannot be questioned. And if you were listening to me, you'll be able to repeat it. This is a listening test I'm conducting for you, little listening test. Don't change the meaning. Don't evaluate. Don't judge. Tell me, what did I say? So here again is how you can be assertive. If you didn't get it, put your hand up and say, please repeat. But if someone wants to try, I'm your humble servant.
So this questioning method it's called the Socratic method. Because Socrates employed it thousands of years ago. He's supposed to be one of the great three philosophers. Socrates.
But what did I say? I want to know what did I say about questions and answers.
Understanding. Questioning and understanding.
Repeating what you say.
No, if he repeats what I said, I'll agree. Now I'm listening.
No, you question it.
Don't ask the questions which no one knows. And don't give me the answer.
See, you're judging what I said. That's not what I said. All right, I'll say it again. See, you should be listening all the time. From the moment you wake up, the time you fall asleep, you should be listening. Because the answers are out there. I didn't say this. This is a giant who said this. The answers are out there. All you have to do is ask the right questions. You know who said that? Elon Musk. Answers are out there. You have to ask the right questions. What I had said. So there are two giants I mentioned to you, Google and Elon Musk. Please climb up on their shoulders. They really know how to ask questions. The mantra I gave you was, listen carefully. If you're not looking at me, you're not listening. Okay. Here we go. I prefer questions that cannot be answered to answers that cannot be questioned. Some people have got it. I can make out in your eyes I can make out. But because you're having difficulty listening, you're finding it very difficult to express it. But this is the basis of conflict. If you express it differently from what the other person was trying to say, you've got a conflict. Or you've got the beginnings of a conflict. And 2 or 3 steps later, bas, emotions get involved, little egotism. Who do you think you are? You know who I am? Bas, yeah. You've all seen this, yes? A lot of smiles in the room. Yes, this is exactly how it happens. I'll try again. Yes?
I prefer questions that cannot be answered over answers that cannot be questioned.
10 on 10. Now you've heard it from me twice, from him once, thank you. Anyone else? Alright, I'll give you an even shorter one. This is Bertrand Russell, a chair professor of mathematics at Cambridge University. Sir Isaac Newton, chair professor of mathematics at Cambridge University. Again, a contemporary of George Bernard Shaw and Rabindranath Tagore. And a Nobel Prize in Literature. What is a mathematician getting a Nobel Prize in Literature for? Because he wrote stuff like this. This is to help you develop your ability to listen. You have to look at me if you want to listen to me. And we'll do that exercise after this. Most people would rather die than think. In fact, they do. Not sure. He's heard me say it before. Do you remember it? I said, don't say anything. You spoil it for everyone. He's been in my class before, so he has a big advantage. Be assertive. Be assertive.
Most people would rather die rather than think, and they do.
I'm asking you to be assertive. What is the way to be assertive?
Please repeat.
Please repeat here. There's no harm because you want to get it right. You don't want to get it wrong. I mean, I speak for myself, of course. A lot of people who deliberately want to get it wrong, excellent career as a politician. Excellent career. Deliberately get it wrong. And take a lot of advantage of it. So I'll repeat. Bertrand Russell. Most people would rather die than think. In fact, they do.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Most people think rather die than think, and they do.
Okay, close enough. Close enough. You haven't missed the vital elements of it. So close enough, I'll give that to you. Yes.
Most people rather die than they think. In fact, they do.
See, you can't use the word they think. It's either that, right? Rather die than think. When you say rather die than they think, that changes the meaning completely. This was okay. This was okay. It's close enough in meaning that cholbe, no problem. See, it's not easy to do. So, the question here is why? What are the barriers to listen? Why don't people listen? Quickly.
Ego.
See, I'm happy to keep going. This is
Language.
stuff I've been doing for a long time.
Language.
Okay, yes. If you don't have the language, how can you listen? Very
Ego
good.
is one thing. Ego is good.
Questioning the intention of the speaker.
Yes, this person is up to no good. So why should I listen? Correct.
He might be skilled enough, but the intention.
Yes. Intention is a big problem. It's one of the most difficult things to prove in a court of law, but it's a big problem. Yes,
Lack of bond.
lack of.
bond between the communicator.
All right.
Stick to the same points, not going to get very specific.
Yes, yes.
So mind is restless by nature. So it's very difficult to concentrate to listen. Because the mind by itself is a restless thing.
Yeah.
I will tell you.
Yes, you sir.
See, while listening, most of the people are busy in speaking out his answer.
Yeah.
They are engaged in thinking about his answer.
Egotism. See, you're
Right.
personalizing.
Yeah.
Don't personalize. Keep it there. Keep it out there. Discuss it. Get some advice on it.
There's always a bit of fluency mismatch. So, for example, when I am perhaps speaking in somewhere in France, where those people are not good in English, and I am speaking in my same pace of English, which I speak with my friends in Calcutta, they will not get head or tail out of it. So, I think that is
language barrier.
Yeah, he already said language. He is fleshing it out. He's filling it out more completely. Thank you. It's much clearer now. Okay, so besides the fact of egotism, that is from your point of view, besides the fact that you may be a member of a group and you subscribe to what that group believes, and all of a sudden you come across something which the group doesn't believe in, so now you got a real problem. Who are you going to hang with? Your group, or are you going to hang with this thing which is so different? But in my experience, the biggest reason people don't listen is they don't have the courage to change.
So close window.
Using attitude.
Classic Johari window. Bandhu mane kya dekhte bhai? No one can see. Yes. So can you repeat what I said? Why don't people listen? What is the reason I have given you? The number one reason?
They don't want to change.
Oh, no, it's not
Change their
correct.
minds.
No, that's not correct.
courage to change.
Loudly.
Courage to
See,
change.
courage to change. This article was written by whom many agree were the greatest psychologist of the 20th century, Carl Rogers. We're giving you the article after that. Carl Rogers. It's written by Rogers and Roethlisberger. It was published in 1952 in HBR. It was published in Span, and it was allowed by HBR, Harvard Business School, for circulation without permission because it was too important. If you don't listen, they're making the world worse. And the world from 52 to when it was published in Span around the mid-80s to 1991 when it was republished again. Then in 2000 they published it. It's free for all. You don't need Harvard's permission to have this article because it's too important. Why is it too important? We'll slowly work our way towards that. In the meantime, I'm doing a little recursion. I'm going back to the beginning to see how you're doing. So, the courage to change. Courage is different from bravery. You're brave when facing pace bowling, 160 kilometers an hour. You're wearing a helmet, you're wearing guard, you're a good batsman, you faced 160 before. That's bravery. That's not courage. Courage is inside you. When you hear something which you disagree with, are you prepared to change if what you've heard seems to be, well, I told you, the probability of it being right, probability of it being wrong, it seems to be more correct than what you know. So I'm going to conduct a small exercise here. And notice I haven't been there at all. So tell me, how am I communicating with you? What are the different things I'm doing which are conveying my message to you? Verbally and non-verbally.
Interacting with
Okay.
Your
Can you be more specific?
you.
Hand
Body
gesture.
language.
Body language, what else?
Eye contact.
Body language is eye contact, yes.
Example.
Example. So that's content. So we've got body language, we've got content. There's one more thing I'm using.
I thought that you have an ardent desire to communicate the message, to drive home the message
No, thank you.
to us.
Thank you.
That I could detect.
Thank you. But what is the third element? Now, Ananda, you should be able to tell us. What is the third element? There's content, there's body language. What's the third element I'm using to convey messages?
Questioning.
Pitch. Pitch.
Pitch, what else? Voice.
Yes.
The pace at which I speak, the speed, high pitch, low pitch to make it interesting for you, the loud, the soft. That's what makes it interesting to listen to me. So now Ananda not allowed to answer because he may remember, so he's looking very worried. Oh, champ. How much of my message is conveyed by the content? How much of the message is conveyed by my voice? How much of the message is conveyed by my body language? Give me a percentage. It should add up to 100. No. I told you no. See, not listening. See? See? Not listening. You saw that here. Number one example. I said, don't participate. First person to participate.
You said that he's being assertive.
That's aggressive, sir. That's not assertive. That's aggressive. See, just something about aggressive and assertive. Never be aggressive. You know why? You don't know how aggressive the other person can be. It is not about the size of the dog in the fight. It is about the size of the fight in the dog.
Aggression also depends.
These guys in Europe, they're finding out now. It's nothing to do with the size of the dog. It's about the size of the fight in the dog. It's carrying on now. Very sad. I'm not going to take any names. You know who I'm talking about. Middle East also. See, they did something. Okay, very aggressive. And now look at the result. Just look at the result. Never do anything aggressive because you don't know how aggressive the other person can be. You don't know.
That was the blunder India made in 1962.
Okay.
India was aggressive.
We'll have another session on that. We'll have another session on that. Let's stick
We didn't
to
know how
barriers and gateway. So the gateway is assertiveness. The barrier is aggressiveness. Recognize it. So how much of my message is conveyed by my content? How much of my message is conveyed by my voice? How much of my message is conveyed by my body language? That's a rough guess.
70-20-10.
70,
By communication.
70, 20, 10. Okay, the ratios are not bad. Improve slightly.
20 to 25, 30.
Okay, this 51 is much closer. It's 55 for body language.
Non-verbal.
Yeah, 55% for body language. So now you've got voice and content. So give me a breakup. Take a chance. See, there's no question of failing. It's only a question of learning. You have to experiment. I'll tell you about an Ustad experiment done by an Indian who got a Nobel in chemistry, Ramakrishnan. I'll tell you Ustad experiment. On himself he did an experiment. But first let's finish this. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
20, 25, 85, 20, 25.
See, basically, verbal and non-verbal, if I say
Yes.
65 and 35. And now you have taken
No,
this
non-verbal
voice,
is 55.
voice, and as you have taken voice, another element,
Yes.
that could be 10 to 15%.
Okay. Just throw some numbers out here. There's no pass fail here. It's just, see, this is, I want you to experiment. No, the first one is 55. I'm giving it, not listening.
Yes.
See, for learning, you have to listen. Yeah, really. I remember the students in school and college who always got the best marks. They were not making notes in class. They just listening to the prof. And then they go and they watch a movie and they have fun and they came first. How did you do that? Where's your notes? No notes, I got the book. Listen, understand, appreciate, it's yours. So,
Because I think something about being in the moment.
no, give me a number. I don't want any being in the moment, being lost.
55, 30, 15, 7%.
Okay,
7%.
which one is that? Voice or content?
Voice.
No, that's content.
Sorry, that's content.
So 55 plus 7 is 62. How much is voice?
38.
Good. You know math. See, that's the problem with the phone. You can't see the person. So you have no idea what's going on. Half the message is gone. Half the message is gone. You really have to listen to the voice to see if they're sincere, if they're true, if they're authentic, if they're real. Listen. But that's why standing behind a podium is never wrong whenever you're engaging with an audience. They want to see you. They don't want to see your podium. Alright, so coming back to listening and learning, I'm going to do a small exercise. Finally, I'm going to go in there. Fill up the white space. You're not allowed to participate. Please keep an eye on him. Everybody, how do you pronounce that word? Everybody.
So,
Now, the next word I'm going to write over there, simple words. 2 alphabets, 3 alphabets only. The next word, how do you pronounce it? If you know how to pronounce it, put your hand up. Don't say it. But that is going to be a test of your ability to listen to me. You have to change, right? Don't pronounce the word. Just pronounce the word, don't pronounce the next word. If you know how to pronounce it, put your hand up. Alright? Here we go. No worries. Put your hand up. Don't say the word. Put your hand up. 3 words. English. The rest of you don't know how to pronounce it. Alright, so let's see the hands and I can ask the hands one by one. Yes, sir. SEW. Pronounce? You don't know. It's okay. It's alright. I don't know. So you put your hand up. Sue. Sue.
Siu.
Sue. Sue.
Siu.
Sue.
Siu. Siu.
So.
Same as the first one.
No.
Alright. Please go to a dictionary and see the pronunciation. You see, you've never checked it. And I want you to know the correct pronunciation for the rest of your life. That will be listening to me. Simple learning. Only way to learn this is to listen. Anyone with a good phone connection, go to Oxford or Cambridge or HarperCollins or Merriam-Webster, anyone. Put the word SEW and press the button so we can all hear the pronunciation.
So,
So,
It's not your fault. Because 99.9% of our population pronounces this as Sue or Sue, S-U-E. Sue is what you do when you take someone to court. Sue to... Okay, I'm not finished yet.
no, but this sort of googlies are always there in English language.
But so
There are
simple.
lots.
3 alphabets, sir.
English
There
language
are
is
a lot
very
of-
strange.
Okay, no, absolutely correct. English language is a very young language. It's not even 800 years old.
And it's a combination
So
of.
they keep improving understandings. The problem with English is that it requires context. So you sew on a button, you know what the word is. You sew on the pocket of the shirt, the word is that. But you say so what, then the word is pronunciation of this word. Put your hand up and speak so I can look at you. Yes?
So,
So, what does it mean?
As you sow, so you reap.
Okay, that's not the meaning, that's a wonderful quotation.
No, part of it is the.
I'm listening, I'm not.
Part of it is the meaning.
Who is that? Like a patty.
planting something or
See, this is a very important thing for you all to understand. You have to use another word to give meaning to the word. The word is plant. You cannot say sowing is sow. You cannot say that. This is what makes a language. Other words are able to explain the meaning of other words in the language. Then you have a language. If words cannot give you the meaning of a word in the language, you don't have a language. English language is very recent, it's very young, it's still growing, it requires a lot of context. However, this is the big advantage that you have. It gives you the flexibility that other older languages don't. So you can write in your own style, provided you are able to meet the requirements of grammar and punctuation. You write in your own style. This is the advantage of English. It allows you to write in your own way. Take for example the oldest language, Sanskrit. The last research says it's between 12 and 14,000 years. That's the last research I read, 12, 14,000. Then we've got Latin, we've got Greek. Hebrew? Later.
Spanish is one.
Much later.
Spanish.
Much later. German, French, English, all much later. See, any of you did Sanskrit in school?
Yeah. Yes.
Or you did Sanskrit. How easy was it to learn?
Sandhi Samas, it was very difficult.
Not only Sandhi Samana, how do you write the sentence? See, it's very strict. Sanskrit is very strict. This is the only way to write it, not in English. In English, there are several ways to write. This gives you a huge advantage. I came across a wonderful article written after they put the Chandrayaan on the moon and the lander came off and it traveled. Wonderful article. They said, why are you worried about English? Think of it as a language which has the jargon for the engineering purpose. Don't think of it anything else. It has the jargon. The entire jargon of any rocket program is in English. There's no other words except English words for the jargon in a rocket program. They are not talking any other language when they're talking about rocketry in the ISR. They're all speaking English. They have to use the same words. Now, that bias is removed. Are you listening? Also, I'll tell you the secret of learning a language. You have to stay in the language. You have to stop translating. Many people don't realize this. They learn it because it's badly taught. People who teach languages, they teach it through translation. That's not the way to teach. The way to teach is to tell people to remain in the language and keep speaking in the language. The teacher should also keep speaking in the language. They'll figure it out. Just by listening and images and stuff, you can make out. Well, that's the secret to learning languages. So, planting is sowing. There's another pronunciation of this word. See, these are small words, 2 or 3 alphabets in English. There's another pronunciation of this word.
It must be sow or something.
Sow, correct. What does it mean? So you have to be very careful when you speak. See, these are some of the barriers to communication. You use words you don't know the meaning of, people will not understand you. They may know the meaning. It's not a gateway. Words are not a gateway. It's words used correctly that are the gateway. Anyone here? Sao?
Board or some half or some animal.
Very good, very good. A little more specific, sir.
Big.
Adult, female, pig is a sow. So the sow was crossing the field with 6 piglets, you know. And sow itself, you know itself. Adult, female, pig. But you can also say, sow rice seeds, sew on a button, so what? Context is very important in English. So context becomes the gateway. And of course you can't beat practice. You can't beat practice. So next time someone asks you what SEW is, be modest and tell them it's so, but if you want to say SEW, it's okay. Because people just don't know. Where's he gone? Where's Mr. Language here? Yeah. People just don't know. But are you listening? Are you learning? Are you going to change? If I meet any of you in the future, I'm going to ask you to pronounce this word. If you get it wrong, I hope you don't get it wrong. Yeah, that means you've learned. It means you listen to me. You have the courage to change. So there are 4 stages of learning. We've all been through stage 1 and stage 2. The first stage of learning is, have you seen it? Have you heard it? Have you experienced it? It happens to everyone. The second stage of learning is that you can talk about it and you can write about it. Remember school and college exams? Viva, talk about it, write about it. Unfortunately, education ends there. But that is not learning. I know many, many highly educated people who haven't learned much, if anything at all. The third stage of learning is, can you recognize it when you see it? So can you, after our session today, recognize the barriers to communication? Can you recognize the gateways? I'm seeing some people say, yes, well, okay, I'm glad. I'm happy you're optimistic. What is the fourth stage of learning? First one is I've experienced it, I've heard it, I've seen it. The second one is I can talk about it, write about it. The third one is I can recognize it when I see it. What's the fourth stage of learning?
Memorize it.
That would come in the second stage.
Teaching.
No. Okay, it's much quicker than that. Running out of time, so I'll go for it. I can do it. I can do it. The problem is, you can't do everything. And this is especially true in management. As you get more and more promoted, you can't do everything. You have to depend upon people. You have to be able to recognize it when you see it. Not necessarily because you can do it, that doesn't mean you can recognize it. There are many people who have got academic PhDs, but they can't teach for nuts. There are many people who got academic PhDs, they can't head any institution because they don't know how to manage institution. They know their work. So, it's very important that all of you as managers develop the gateway to the third stage of learning. I can recognize it when I see it. Why? Because you have to delegate. And what I mentioned earlier, a little recursion here, I'm going back. Very difficult to find competent people. You keep delegating to incompetent people, your results will be incompetent. There's no escape from that. There's no escape from that. So this requires a little bit of logical thinking. So I'll give you a quick logical question. All men are mortal. Socrates was mortal. What follows that? Don't say anything. I'll say the same thing again. All men are mortal. Socrates was a man. What follows that?
Man is mortal. Socrates was mortal.
Which one? The first one or the second one?
Socrates is a mortal.
The last. You mean the Buddha sentence combined or repeat
No,
the sentence?
these are two separate things. See, there's a lack of logic when you say all men are mortal and Socrates was mortal. Because I know many people who have pets in the name of Socrates. parrots, dogs, cats. But when you say all men are mortal and you say Socrates was a man, then you can say, there you go, sir. That's it. Yes, thank you. Then you can say Socrates. You have to watch out for this. You have to watch out. You don't need to do a degree in logic. You have to just watch out. Does it follow? Does it follow? And it will only come if you learn how to listen. You won't listen. Right. So, in 1952, the persons who wrote about listening, barriers and gateways to communication, they said it's extraordinary that anyone can communicate with anyone. It's very different because everyone is so different. I think I've covered enough ground to prove that to you. In 1991, when they rewrote the article and they republished it, they wrote that the fact that anyone can communicate with anyone is not extraordinary, it's a miracle. Yeah, it's written in the article. It's a miracle. Because everyone is so different. The tendency to evaluate is so high. That's a barrier. If you can lower that barrier, then you won't evaluate. Understand, appreciate. Today, the attention span, the average attention span of the human being around the planet, I saw this research 3-4 years ago, the average attention span of human beings around the planet is only 7.5 seconds. Can you tell me why?
What
2
average?
words.
I didn't get.
Okay.
Please.
The average attention span of human beings around the planet, people like you and me, is 7.5 seconds. Can you tell me why it's so low?
Mind is very frequent. Mind is very frequent.
Okay, so what's moving the mind? Alright, I'll tell you. Social media. Yes, and the researchers could not resist writing at the end of the article that a goldfish, a pet goldfish, has a 10-second average attention span. That's better than us on average. On average, yours may be less than 7.5, you may have 7.5 hours attention span. See, I'm not pointing any fingers, I'm just saying you should be aware of this. It's a gateway. If you keep going, WhatsApp and then Telegram and then X and then Facebook and then email and Reddit and you spend the whole day doing that. Where's your attention? This is what people do. It's a huge challenge.
Social media is a bane, you mean to say. It's a bane. A bane of mankind, presently. It's a bane of society.
Maybe it's a good thing also. Some people know how to use it well.
I generate a lot of my business leads through social
There
media.
you go. So it's up.
It's up to you, the user.
It's a tool. You can use a screwdriver for tightening something, or you can throw it at someone. It's a tool. So the current, I have something to share with you about communication in this day and age with a 7.5 second average attention span. The fact that people can actually communicate with each other in this day and age is ineffable. Have you heard that word before? Ineffable. Quick dictionary. INEFFABLE.
Meaning inexpressible. Inexpressible.
Yes, it's difficult or if not impossible to express, to utter. It's ineffable. How do people communicate with such a little lower attention span? But let me go back to Rabindranath Tagore's time. George Bernard Shaw. This is what he said. Long before any of this came along. This is what George Bernard Shaw said. 100 years ago maybe. The problem with communication is the illusion that it actually occurs. Anyone? Repeat.
The problem with communication is the illusion that it occurs.
That it actually occurs. Thank you. Have a very good evening. Thank you all.
My takeaway is
Yes, sir.
বলছি তুমি কেমন করে গান করো আমি অবাক হয়ে চলে গেল
you so much. That's beautiful. It is really beautiful. Thank you. A lot of thought has gone
No, no,
into it.
no, no, no.